Hey, this is Heidi Lynch.
And I'm Perry Voss. And this is Avocado Toast, the series podcast.
Our web series was inspired by our real-life experiences.
The great ones.
And the heartbreaking ones. And our podcast series is inspired by the community around us. The people we collaborate with. The people who lift us up. The people who listen when things aren't going so well and celebrate when things are.
And in our podcast, we wanted to reach out and chat with other artists and creators to find out what makes them tick. What inspires them.
What drives them.
What brings them joy.
We hope that they inspire you as much as they inspired us.
Enjoy. Today, Heidi chats with actress and writer Nelu Handa, who plays Rosie on Avocado Toast, the series.
Hi, Nelu.
Hi, Heidi. How are you?
Good. So Nelu played Rosie in season 1 of Avocado Toast, the series. We were over the moon to get her involved. I won't lie. All of us were pinching ourselves. We were like, no way.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So you'll recognize Nelu as a fixture in many Canadian comedy shows like Jann, Baroness Von Sketch, Workin Moms. Decoys was really funny. I really enjoyed that on CBC Gem. Yeah. And you've written for the Beaverton. I mean, the list goes on. You have done a lot of stuff. But you have. But the thing that I have found not most interesting, but something that I really certainly enjoyed during the depths of COVID is something that you started, I think if I get this right, when the acting career, writing career was not going as hot as it is now. You started Merchy Comedy.
Right.
Which you've just celebrated 5 years, I think.
Yeah.
Right?
Thank you for paying attention.
Yeah. So it's do you want to just explain what Merchy Comedy is?
Yeah, for sure. It's a night of comedy that I started for women of color in Toronto. That was back in like 2015 when kind of things were just getting started for my career, and I was looking for something to kind of fill my time, and I was just looking for a new focus and stuff. And I'd like come out of a diversity program with the Second City and had this group of like incredible women of color that I had like gone through this program with. And I just kind of put on this show at the Bad Dog Theater with no intention of kind of like thinking how long it was going to go or anything. But the first night was great, and I loved it. So I just kept it going. And you know, we've had our like, you know, packed houses, and we've had our audiences of like 8 people kind of thing. But I think we are really hitting a stride where everyone is coming out to see the show. And, you know, things have had to change gears since COVID's happened. So we've done a couple of Zoom shows, and we also changed our name. So Heidi says it's Merchy Comedy, which is our new name, which means spicy in Punjabi and Hindi, but it used to be called Yas Queen. And just with all the stuff that was happening in the world, and kind of like everyone reckoning with their own, you know, complacency and complacency, is that the word? With you know, how oppressed the Black community is. I kind of, I talked with my team, and we changed the name to something that was less hurtful to the community, because I learned a lot about like contributing to Black erasure and how we kind of co-opt culture. And you know, if the group doesn't benefit from it, then who are we to take that stuff and profit from it in a way? And because this show represents diversity of women of color, it didn't sit right. And I had heard grumblings in early days about it not sitting right, and I kind of was a bit like, I didn't pay much attention to it almost, but then it was just like very clear to me that I had to be on the right side of history with all of it. So yeah, we changed the name, and it's Merchy, and it's you know, I'm waiting for the day that we can do it again in a format that feels, you know, fun.
Yeah. Also, like your group and your team taught me about Yes Queen and how it's what I'm appropriating when I use it. And that was not on my radar until you guys changed your name. So I think, you know, the ripple of that will be good for everybody too. I got to do one of the Zoom comedy nights, and then I was in England, and it was like I tried to do the next one, but it was like 5 o'clock, and I don't remember what time it was, but I was like, I can't do it. But the one I did was when I was like stuck in quarantine at my parents' house, wearing the same tracksuit for like 9 days straight, and it was really funny, and it was unlike anything. I mean, it was a Zoom, so there were so many people on the Zoom, though. I was just so impressed that you produced the shit out of that, but it was just a very different vibe to any comedy show that I've ever been to. And I've never done comedy. I've always thought about maybe trying stand-up, and also think it's absolutely terrifying. But in my experience, you go to a comedy show and it's like 8 white dudes who are normally straight. And then there's like a couple of women or people of color who go up, and the vibe in the room is interesting. But I found even on the Zoom chat, your little troupe, like it just seemed like everyone was so supportive of each other. And it was like the pressure was on to be funny, but it was positive pressure and like support. You could feel it in the Zoom room, which really like spoke to me. And I just had a big chat with Leighton Williams, who's in Avocado Toast 2, who plays Dave. And he was talking about how this group of young Black men who all sort of graduated at the same time, they created a production company together. And he was like, 9 times out of 10, every audition we go to, we are all in the room before that audition. But because we've become a team, we genuinely support each other. And when one of us gets something, all of us get something. And I guess I was curious, do you guys from Merci Comedy, are you in the same audition rooms? Like, what is that like?
Yeah, from time to time, for sure, that's come up. I think in earlier days, we were always seeing each other at all the commercial auditions, and I know that it still comes up with other things now. But I think I've shifted into writing more so. Like I do acting for sure still, but I spend most of my time in writing rooms. And I know that for me, I do bring up a lot of names of women of color if, the writers are looking for new people, just because I think that having that leg up and being known by people is really important. And so, yeah, I'm completely like, I try to do my best to kind of support everyone because I know how hard it is to kind of, make way in this industry. You really have to, it's interesting because you really have to let people know who you are. And the thing that I think about with women of color, like the vast majority of us have like been raised to be quiet and not speak up and to kind of like fall into the cracks of, where society wants us to fit. And I think that's starting to change nowadays. I think that's definitely starting to transform, which is good. You see it in the media all the time and like conversations with your friends, that we're not really, everyone's geared towards thinking in a more individualistic way that feels like, oh, I have a voice and I have something to say. And I think that's a really encouraging thing about the time right now.
Yeah. I read in an article, I don't know if you're allowed to say which character, but I read in an article that with Jann specifically, you brought up that there's the opportunity to cast something differently. Like one of the roles could also be served by a young woman of color.
Yeah.
Was it Kale?
Yeah, it was Kale. Yeah.
That's so amazing. This is such synchronicity. So Eleni Watko's my very good friend. I'm interviewing her next week, but we were working a shit Joe job together when she got that audition.
Oh,
and
really?
Yeah. And the script was so good. I don't know if you wrote her audition scene for that, but we were killing ourselves laughing. Like I think we had to do this 10-hour shift together. And about every 5 minutes we would go like hide behind a tent and I would read the scene with her. And it was one of those moments where you watch your friend do something. And as soon as she started to do Kale, I was like, this is your part. Like, this is absolutely your role. Yeah. And by the end of our shitty shift, she was totally memorized and we were just like laughing our asses off. And yeah, she's a wonderful human being. And she had this amazing, flourishing musical theater career. She's such a talented musician, but that was just such a big break for her. And like, I just think can be a positive role model for like any young woman anywhere. as a human being. And I just was so happy for her to get that part. And
Yeah.
that's such an amazing gift that you voiced that and created that opportunity for her. That's
that's so great. I'm so glad to hear that. I know Elena a little bit, but we haven't had too much time to talk. But I'm really happy about what she's done with Kale on screen. You know, we just finished writing season 3, and I think she's going to be very pleased with the scripts that come her way. Just because, like, she's really, really shown like that she's got some really good acting chops and stuff over the season. So, I'm excited to see how that character is gonna grow on the show.
Yeah, congrats on the show too. I've always been a huge lover of Jann Arden, and I had no idea that she was that funny. And it's just like blindsided by talent. But I've always loved her music. Like, just sang it in the car driving.
If you've ever been to a concert of hers, like I've been a fan of hers like since I was a teenager, and I've gone to concerts. I'm the only brown person in the crowd probably, but I love her and whatever. And she does like a hot 5 in between every song. Like she does a stand-up set. She's hilarious. Like very naturally, she was very funny. And then, you know, when I was working on Workin Moms, she was on the show that day, and I like lost my mind, and we just like became friends. And she was so kind to everyone on set, and made it very easy to talk to her. And then she like tagged me into her Instagram photo, and I like went fucking over the moon and died a little bit. And then we just kept in touch. And then when her show came up, she asked if I wanted to interview for the writing job, and I was like, Jann Arden calling me for sure. I'll do that.
That's
but
so
she's a
great
person. It's nice to meet like celebrities. I find that I haven't met many terrible people. You know that cliche celebrity story of like, oh, they're terrible people kind of thing. I haven't really met many, or any. I can't think of anybody off the top of my head. She's just really gracious and warm and supportive, so supportive. And I think that's such a lovely thing. Like, you know, as a woman and of someone of that stature, to be able to be so supportive of people who are, you know, decades behind in terms of like where you're at in life. And like in a different situation completely. But I think that's really encouraging too. It's something that I pay attention to it. Like you really notice the people who take the time to mentor you and to give you that positive support, or like the truth that you need to hear and all that stuff. So I feel very encouraged by that.
Yeah. I feel like actually thinking back, I should have known too, because I think Mag Rothman, who played my mom in Avocado Toast, and Jann are friends. And Mag is like the goofiest, funniest person in the world. So it makes sense that Jann is goofy too. I think what blindsided me too is the way she fully throws herself into the physical comedy. Like she just like does it. It blew my mind. I never went to one of her concerts, or I would have known.
Yeah, I mean, she still tours. I'm sure once COVID's over, she'll hit the road. But you should go. You should for sure go to a concert because she's hilarious.
Yeah, I should for sure. Am I allowed to ask you a little bit about Sort of, a new show that you're writing on for CBC? Do you mind telling me a little bit about what it's about?
Sure. Yeah. They just started production. So back in like the spring, early summer, we wrote the show, and it's about a transgendered nanny who is of Pakistani background, and they kind of have to take a bigger role in the family because the mom falls ill. So it's just about their story in dealing with like being a caretaker and also trying to figure out their life, and like, you know, the gender identity and sexual identity, and then also coming from like a Southeast Asian background, and like the kind of the dynamics that happen specifically with their mom, and just seeing like how that character navigates through all those stories. It's really wonderful. I think it's gonna make a big change in the world. Like it feels like a groundbreaking thing, and it's gonna be on CBC on like, you know, prime time kind of thing. So it's, you know, it's not your corner gas, though I think corner gas is very funny. It's like it's a completely different vibe and like completely different demographic of people, which I think is very appealing because it talks about a character who, you know, is completely being true to themselves, but it will raise a lot of questions and a lot of like people's own like assumptions about what being a transgender person is.
Mm-hmm. And what has it been like to work? Like, did Bilal write on the show as well?
Mm-hmm. Bilal was in the room. Yep.
Great.
The whole time.
And Fab Filippo.
Fab's our showrunner, and he was guiding the ship the whole time. And then there was 2 other writers, and then the script coordinator. And yeah, it was just like a really beautiful, like intimate time with each other. Like everyone was being very honest about where they're coming from, and we shared some really personal stories. And Fab and Bilal went back and just had like their own like voice passes with everything, and to make sure it was like as authentic as possible. And they did some rejigging and whatnot. But I think the stories that we're telling haven't been seen on TV before, specifically like Canadian national TV. I don't think that stuff has happened on like network, maybe on cable, but I think it's going to be really interesting to watch it.
Yeah. And it's amazing that it will be on CBC, because the potential ripple effects of that will change so many kids' lives. Yeah. You know, so many people who are coming up in the world now, where the world is slightly more open. I'm really, really, really excited for it. It looks amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, I have a couple of like random questions that I ask everyone. So one is, in this industry, we are especially known for our successes. There's no publicity person for our failures. But we learn a lot from our failures, and sometimes we learn from them more than we do our successes. So my question is, do you have a huge failure in your past that you gained a lot of positivity from, that you learned from?
I can't think of a specific one, but I do remember when I was kind of first starting out with it, and every audition was super precious to me, and I would be devastated if I didn't get something. And I think like those repeated failures was kind of like it built up a callus, and it also was like me kind of realizing that, you know, if eventually I booked something like this commercial, I would have, you know, probably the math about that was like, oh, if I had said yes to the other thing, I probably wouldn't be able to do this thing now, kind of thing. So my friend has this saying that I like think about every day, and I repeat it on like, I repeat it all the time, and it's, what's for you won't pass by you. So it's just this like really great way to kind of like trick your brain almost, but like come to the realization as a mature adult that not everything's meant for you. So, you know, you got to just believe that the right stuff is coming your way.
Yeah. Every crappy audition just makes your skin a little bit thicker. So it's preps you for the audition that is meant for you and the part that is meant for you.
Exactly. Yeah.
I don't know how much like say you get in the casting process when you're working on a show, but from being on the other side of the table, when you see an actor, do you believe in this like it factor? Do you know what it is when you see it, and what do you think it is?
Oh wow. I don't know that I've like been in that position. I haven't been in that. Sorry.
Or even in comedy, when you're watching comedy, like, you know, when you have that moment when you're like, oh my God, they have it. Yeah,
I've had that before for sure. I've being like running that show, I was scouting a lot of people. I would always like keep my eyes open for new women of color on the scene at stand-ups and whatnot. And I remember one performer, her name is Monica Garrido, and she's from Mexico, and she moved here like just like 5 years ago or so. Maybe I'm wrong, but she moved here recently. And I remember seeing her in the basement of Comedy Bar. It was a class show, an improv show, where, you know, it's like 12 people on stage and they're all fighting for time, and it's just, you know, just kids having fun. And she went up and she did like just like 2 minutes. And then I lost track of her in the bar, and I tried to hunt her down for days, and I was like, who is that person? And then she performed at what was Yas Queen, and did like a stand-up set, and she had never done it before, and she murdered.
Wow.
And I just like, I don't know what it is about her. I think it's just like the confidence that someone has with their voice. I think in comedy, that's a super that's a super important commodity to have. And I think for her, that really stuck out to me. And I think that with a lot of the comedians that I see, they're just so authentic to their voice, and they have such a wicked perspective that you don't think about. Jokes are great too. Like the best jokes are the ones that you don't expect. And like, we've all seen comedy since we were born. Mm-hmm. And so the same jokes when you keep telling them over and over, it's like, okay, this is enough. What happens when you upend that and then you find a different perspective? And whether that comes from someone of a different background or like just like whatever take that they have, I think it's just more entertaining to see that stuff. So yeah, I think the it factor maybe is just like being you, man.
Yeah.
Perhaps. Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe that's
I think that's a great way to frame it too, because it's attainable. Sometimes I feel like that thing it's a cliche saying, but sometimes it's like some people have it and some people don't. But I totally agree with you and hit on this with someone else that I'm like, when you're connected to yourself and your voice and you're present, mm-hmm. that's infinitely attractive to everybody who's watching you. Totally. That makes people able to take you in.
Yeah.
Great.
Agreed.
Well, I think that is it for today. And I just want to say thank you so much for this awesome chat.
Thank you for having me, Heidi, in your beautiful blue room.
Thank you. I'm in a basement, dark basement.
Thank you so much for listening.
And thank you to Ontario Creates for the support to make Avocado Toast the Series podcast possible. You can pick your player to watch all 10 episodes of Avocado Toast the Series at www.avocadotoasttheseries.com.
We'd also love to give a huge shout out to Russell Lauder for the use of their beautiful song, Cost of Living. You can find more of their music sprinkled throughout the episodes of our web series, as well as on Spotify, Bandcamp, and iTunes. And links to their social media is in our show notes.